Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Hi. I'm sorry. I'm Chelsea. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Each team has 20 minutes to present its case to the judge. I will hold up the time for the last 10, 5, and 2 minutes, as well as for the last 20 seconds of the presentation. During the last 10 seconds, I will indicate with my finger the numbers of seconds remaining. If you have not finished your presentation after 20 minutes, you will be stopped in order to proceed with the Q&A period. A Q&A period of a maximum of 5 minutes is allocated to the jury at the end of your presentation. Please note that at any time you cannot say or reference the name or the location of your university.
Yellow Pages. Over a century ago, we created a legacy and put everything, all the directories in Canada in one book. We made it convenient for anyone to find what they want to do in one convenient location. When the internet came, we prospered and we made ourselves #1 hit in Google over and over again. When we evolved even more to mobile, we made a mobile app. So we've been doing the right thing for years. And this is what we're going to continue doing as we move forward into an even more open and internet-based environment. My name is Charles, this is Chris and Chelsea. We're here from C3 Consulting to talk to you today about how we're going to move Yellow Pages into the next decade of internet. So, our mandate was to develop and launch the Yellow API successfully. But we were met with a problem that's very typical with IT, which was an us, the IT team, versus them situation, which is the rest of the organization. In that, we have two main stakeholders. As I said, it's the IT team and the organization. And under the IT team, you have the developers and the project managers. And under the organization, you have the marketing, operations, HR. And there's many things that, if we are not on board, we are not going to take advantage of. So if the marketing doesn't believe in what we're doing, they're not going to be able to sell the product as strong as we want them to. If the management isn't excited about what we're doing, they're not going to give us that buy-in we need, or the money, the extra money we need to develop the Yellow API as successfully as we need to again. So it's crucial that we try and figure out a way to link these two and stop working as an us versus them. We need to create a more cohesive environment. So when looking at the us versus them, there's many symptoms that are typically tried to solve. You have the project team constraints, so we feel that we don't have money to move forward. What do we do? Let's get more money, but if the management doesn't give it to us, what do we do then? A lack of buy-in, again. Lack of interest, so the managers, the marketing is not coming to all the meetings. Managers aren't coming to all the meetings either, so there could be a bit of a lack of motivation to see the project go forward because we're not presenting it in a confident enough way, perhaps. And finally, communication breakdown. We're not delivering the message of why IT is so powerful to Yellow Pages, which is what might be a problem. And all of these things fall under the us versus them mentality. They are not problems in and of themselves. Looking at the Yellow API, we have four main things that were an issue. The first one was risk of the open data. So one of the things that the API presented was that anyone that uses it will have access to our entire database for free. And that was seen as a problem. Managers weren't happy with that. Why can't we charge them data? Why can't we charge them money for that data? The second thing was secure login access. Who can log in? How? Is it too easy? Will we be hacked easily? Again, there was a bit at stake, but there are methods to mitigate that, and we will present to you later today. Return on investment. Again, are we generating the ROI required to be able to present the data for free? Is this a feasible project? And finally, the timeline. Because of the lack of motivation, it's not going as smoothly and as fast as we need it to. And again, eliminating the us versus them mentality will definitely alleviate that. And these symptoms fall into all these things as well. So rather than thinking it's the lack of buy-in that's not getting us the timeline, the project to move quick enough, it's actually the us versus them mentality because those are the symptoms. So that was just something I'd like to point out. Right now, the Yellow Pages group, we have amazing products on the market. We have the website, which was developed really well, Red Flag Deals, Canada 411, all of these were developed really, really well. That means we do have the development prowess internally to develop something really successful that will move forward into the future. But what we want to do is harness that prowess and make something really, really amazing with it. The Yellow API has a lot of potential. Data is a big thing in today's internet age, and by getting our amazing developers to work on the API in a proper enough way, we can really harness the power of that data. What do I mean by open data and why is it so powerful? So the first thing you have is the databases internally at YPG. When you think about the databases and that we should charge money for them, you're limiting yourselves to apps that we create. But if we open the data to everyone, if anyone can access the data from wherever, suddenly you're creating all these links. From any app, anyone can access anything they want to. Now, when you come to Yellow Pages Group as an external company and you pay us, we're putting you in our database. So that's already the money we're getting. So why limit it to just our few applications when we can open it to anyone? And what this does is, when we make data free, that means there's more eyes that are willing to see it, because people aren't paying to see the data anymore, so they just get to see it, and that means the people who are giving us the information to put in our databases, they'll be more willing to pay us more money, because there's more views on their listings. Where do you want to go with this? I presented the power of open data. We know that we have a really strong development team, and we know that the Yellow API is a strong project. What we really need to do is alleviate the us versus them mentality and create an us plus them mentality to really move forward into the future as a cohesive team. This will not benefit just the IT, but the organization as a whole, because we are a very IT-based company now, even though we used to be paper-based. And by creating the us plus them mentality, we are going to be able to develop and launch the Yellow API successfully. I'm going to leave Chelsea now to show you how we're going to be eliminating that and how we're going to move forward into the future.
Thank you, Charles. So to eliminate the us versus them mentality, we need to look at the change management and the culture. The reason why we're looking at the change management is because you're currently working on a project where you need multiple departments to work together, or at least have buy-in and want to work with you. You want to eliminate roadblocks and just have smooth sailing for your projects to be successful. So let's look at the change management first. When looking at the change management, the first thing you need to do is create urgency. You need people to see that this is an important project. You need to spread the word out and start talking about the project. And the way we recommend doing this would be through meetings, posters, emails, get the word out to all the employees that this is something important, start the excitement about this project. The second thing you need to do is build a guiding team. This team will basically work on change management until you have a specialist come in. Just to note that these 4 change management points are initially just for you to work on yourself until you get a change management specialist to come in 2 months. So build a guiding team through internal employees and help them motivate other employees. They want this project, they want everyone to believe in this project. Next, you need to create a vision. You want everyone to have the same vision so they know what direction we want to go in. Make it short and sweet and have it on accessibility. Everyone should be able to see what we're doing, what the project's about. And the fourth thing we're going to do is obtain buy-in. That's when you start actually going to meetings, seeing manager, and you want 75% buy-in so that you don't hit obstacles and roadblocks throughout in the middle of the project. You want to start off well, smooth sailing. Now, after 2 months, you will have a change management specialist come in. So, of course, that change management specialist will deal with the other 4 that we just discussed, but on top of it, they're going to start removing obstacles. They're going to start asking people what they think of the project. They're going to address worries and concerns. They're going to start working on, how everyone understands the project and making sure everyone has the right vision. We're going to start doing pilot testing, focus groups to ensure that everybody has the right ideas. Then we're going to start doing short-term wins. This is important because when people see, employees see that it's working, they see small goals, small steps, they see short wins, they're going to become more motivated, more encouraged, and they're going to really believe in the project. So instead of waiting for a long-term win, short-term wins one at a time, recognize employees when they perform a transaction. Then we're going to not let up. This is something very important. Recognize that just one win doesn't mean it's a win. We need transactions to work. We need them to continue. We need to continuously improve and work on that throughout, even after the project has been live. As well, we're going to anchor the change in the company culture. This is really important for future projects as well as this one. We want to make sure the culture invites the us versus them, or us plus them mentality. We want to ensure that they work together and they know that through every project they can have similar change management working together. So let's look more into detail at how we can anchor the change in the company cultures. So the change management that we did go through, we're going to create urgency. We're going to have a guiding team, create a vision, create buy-in. When the change management specialist comes in, we're going to remove obstacles, have short-term wins, don't let up, and we're going to anchor the change in the company culture. So look at the culture. Now, we want to address the culture in new employees and in current employees. For new employees, we're going to start at the onboarding. We want everyone to have the us plus them mentality from the beginning. We want to know we're working as one team and that every project we're working together, we're showing up for meetings, we want it to be important to them. And for the current employees, we want team building. We cross-functionally, we want to have team meetings, and we want to be able to do team building exercises that are really fun and they'll enjoy, such ones as sports, lunch, a Dragon's Den could be fun, contests, video contests. We want everyone to see what every department does and work together so that they can complete projects together and have full buy-in. So to conclude with eliminating the us versus them, begin with the change management and continue with the culture so that the company can really start working together and believe in one another so it'll be easier to implement projects. So after we eliminate the us versus them, we can start looking at our own project team on how we can improve. So some suggestions or some strengths you have is you have a full team, you have a good ROI, you have timelines and milestones, and you have an innovative concept. It's a good concept. Some improvement that needs to be made is through the methodology. Some concerns that have been made about the safety of our data being let out, and our time frame on when this project needs to be deployed. So let's take a look. So just quickly, looking at the methodology, we believe that Agile or Waterfall will do. We'll explain these in more detail in the implementation, but just for a quick glance, Agile or Waterfall for projects depend on the need of the project. For the safety, we believe in a two-step login, which we will go over more in the implementation as well and explain that in more detail. And for time, we believe buy-in comes first. So if that requires a little more time, that's more important so that we're not stopping in the middle of the project. We get the buy-in at the beginning, not throughout the middle. I'm going to pass the floor to Chris, who's going to explain how we're going to implement this change.
Thank you, Chelsea. So, just a summary of what we've done today, we really broke it down into those two categories. We saw the change management aspect of things, really eliminating those cultural boundaries that we have within the organization so that we can then focus on getting the project together, back on track, and making it part of the amazing offerings that YPG has. So we've broken this down into three different terms. We have the short term, which is really about laying that foundation for change and making those cultural changes. We then move into the medium term, which is really focused on development, and we've added a couple of extra issues in there that we feel should be tackled to really address the concerns that the organization has, such as the security issues, testing, and getting more people involved all the way through. And then in the long term, we really look at promoting the application, or the API rather, and some of the success metrics involved. So let's begin with the short term, the foundation. We're going to start with having some initial meetings with essentially everyone. We want the organization, the whole company, to be on board with this new API that's going to be launched. It is a big change. It involves making all of our data open to the public, and so everyone needs to know this is what we're doing, that we are, again, providing that accessibility, that it's part of the vision. And so we really want to have key departmental users involved in these meetings, such as Mr. Hood, who we know has spoken strongly against this project. We really need to focus on getting these opinion leaders on board first, so that when we go into these meetings that we have these influential people on board with the project. And again, to increase the attendance, to alleviate that communication breakdown, we're looking at building it into your performance evaluations. Attendance should be mandatory for these meetings, especially when there are major general assemblies of this nature. We then look at, again, the prototypes. You have some great applications that were developed, and they're using APIs not just from Yellow Pages, but really showing the power, integrating Google Maps into this, bringing together different solutions to create something new. That's something that we haven't seen from Yellow Pages as much as we could with having these external developers. Overall, the key message is about having that database open, really creating the change. We need to have it open in order to create the change. And this is, having that open API is what provides the accessibility, as opposed to having a closed API or making developers pay for it. We then look into the culture again, touching upon those two categories, onboarding, team building, and really the message here is that it's that YPG is about technology-based innovation, and we need to reinforce that for our current employees and for all of our new ones. We then move on to the medium term, development. So we start with the methodology, and we touched upon the fact that we would like to see, not just for this project, but for YPG as a whole, to have that flexibility in choosing a methodology. It's very common for companies to choose between Waterfall and Agile, oftentimes for various reasons, whether it be cost or human resources, or just a matter of wanting to have a steady flow of the project from start to finish. But overall, we feel that, or we know that, projects of this nature can have different needs. And we feel that it's very necessary for you to have an initial project assessment and determine perhaps 2 or 3 methodologies, Agile, Waterfall being 2 examples, and allow the projects to have that flexibility to choose one. Of course, use one throughout the whole project, and then move on from there with that single methodology. So now we look at the change management specialist. It's around this time, after the 2 to 3 month mark, that we've identified the change management, that our team will acquire that change management specialist from internally. And we need to really orient them about the situation. Overall, we want them to take over the change management in those last 4 steps, about removing obstacles and really having their job focused on the change overall. They can be the ones conducting the focus group, the departmental meetings. And of course, you still want to be involved in the project, have those key stakeholders, have the ones who did those general assemblies at the beginning, have them still involved, but the coordination of this will be handed over to the change management specialist. Now we then look at that security issue, that overarching security issue that a lot of our employees have been concerned about, and a very simple way to mitigate that would be through a 2-step verification process. It could be as simple as requiring a developer who wants to use our API to also have to submit additional information, whether it be a company email or a phone number where we can have an instant message call them for verification to ensure that we're not just giving it out to anybody. So these types of features could really help to secure our data, and it's also a great way to say to our employees, you know, we are concerned about this as well. We are mitigating these risks. And we also propose having perhaps a security and risk management specialist in place. If there are security breaches, if there are issues with and concerns with our data, we could, of course, have this person specialize in essence, a champion involved in just risk management for this project. Then for the pilot testing, we really want to have not just your IT team involved. This is another great opportunity for you to get new ideas for your app, new support from other departments. You really need that marketing department on board if you want to have a successful launch of this project. They have to believe in it as much as we do. So the group will be composed of partially non-IT, we propose 6 non-IT individuals from non-IT related departments, whether that be marketing, sales, finance, HR, and then 6 IT employees who are not on the project. And the reason for this is so that we can still have some of that technical expertise working together with non-IT. These focus groups, again, conducted by that change management specialist, will focus on brainstorming and finding new ideas. Perhaps an employee has a great idea for a new app, and we could even develop that internally or approach the company that they're thinking of. We know Procter & Gamble developed an app. Perhaps there's a Pfizer app that an employee has an idea for, and we can approach them to really build connections with other organizations as well. Usability testing then would be focused, the same group, they would look at testing the applications. And we know that we're not the ones developing the applications, but at the same time, when employees can see the power that opening this data to the public has, it gets them more on board, it creates buy-in. So perhaps give them the IAMS app and say, find the nearest pet shop using this app, and they'll see the benefits of how integrating different APIs and different companies into our projects can really create an amazing end solution. So now finally we move on to that long term, the go live, after that 12-month mark. So we've respected the timeline that you provided with us, and at this point we're really looking at sort of little ways that we can improve the API, still keep that relation so that people know that it's still powered by YPG. Starting very simply with a powered by YPG backlink. You can have that integrate into the API so that when developers are using the API to develop whatever app they may choose, that we can still link back to YPG. Have featured apps on the website, on the Yellow Pages website, so that people can see, again, it's in a sense, targeting it towards users, showing them different categories of things they may need, whether it be shopping, whether it be entertainment. We can categorize it in that way to make it more attractive. And then perhaps even giving freebies for developers. We can't neglect the actual developers themselves. We see a lot of developers from, whether it be Facebook developers or Windows 8, and they give out free shirts, they give out pens, just things to really encourage the usage of the YPG API or the Yellow API, and keep it top of mind. Essentially, we're building that Yellow API into the portfolio, part of the product offering that YPG or Yellow Pages group offers. We then look at some of the risks. We definitely considered a few of the risks involved, aside from the ones that we've mitigated. In addition, despite everything, we considered that employee resistance to the actual open data itself is still a huge risk. And we have a contingency plan here, and it's really about just pushing the advantages, pushing the prototypes. perhaps even creating internal teams to allow them to work with some of our developers internally to create apps. Essentially, we really need them to support this project because we are essentially giving out the core of our business, which is the directory, that database. If the project is late, this is why we really need to ensure that the buy-in comes first. We need to ensure that everyone's on board so that we're removing those obstacles that could come up. And we've factored in a little bit of extra time, an additional month into the project timeline, going from approximately 11 months to 12 months. And so we have that opportunity to slow down the project. And finally, the resistance to the us plus them mentality is really about, again, team building, cross-functional teams, and integrating everything together. Overall, we would like to say that today we've solved two problems. We've really successfully developed the launched Yellow API. However, we've solved the core problem behind that, which is really eliminating the presence of the us versus them mentality. And with that being said, we'd like to thank you for your time and open the floor to any questions you may have.
The first question is, you mentioned that you would want to involve the change management specialist after 2 to 3 month period. Can you just tell us your strategy or the reason for that and not involving that person from the start?
The change management specialist was actually not available until 2 to 3 months. And we thought that we wouldn't wait because this needs to happen right away. We need to get buy-in right away. So no waiting, we're going to start without them. When they come, they're going to help us out.
So on that point, I mean, there are critical activities for change management right at the beginning of the project. Who would manage this? Who would be responsible for that in the absence of the change management specialist for 2 months?
Well, at the beginning, we will be dealing with it, and we will be building a team, a guiding team that will essentially be working on it, and it will be internal employees. Hopefully IT employees that are available, and they're going to help motivate other employees for this project until the change management team comes aboard.
Okay. In your recommendations, you suggest that we secure buy-in before proceeding, and that could lead to a project delay. You know, it's more important to get buy-in than actually get going on the wrong foot. You go as far as saying that we should get 75% buy-in. How do you measure buy-in? Like, I mean, it's not as if people will raise their hand and say, you know, I don't buy it in. Like, it's usually much more subtle than that. How do you measure buy-in?
That's a great question. It's not going to be exactly 75%. We want around 3/4, and you're going to measure that just by, you can do employee surveys. You'll be able to tell people that aren't wanting to do this, they're going to raise their hand and tell you, or let somebody know. Just in general, you're going to want the majority of the employees and most of the management as well to want this project to happen.
Okay, just one last. So you mentioned a lot about team building activities and you know, having a coherence between the cross-functional teams. Again, maybe to follow up the question, who would be responsible of this? Thinking that usually, you know, it could be HR or marketing or whatnot. And since you're trying to get their buy-in as well, who would be responsible for these type of activities?
For the team building activities, we're not necessarily looking in the project team. We know that we have a lot of constraints in terms of our resources, human resources. So we could essentially have someone from the overall IT team involved in this, because it's not just this project that's affected, it's also all future projects that could be affected by this mentality. So perhaps it could be on a voluntary basis. We can appoint one of the IT staff members to be in charge of organizing these events, or even make a little team that does that on the side.
In the current situation, clearly there's a disbelief in the marketing that the public APIs are worth it, like that it will lead to a commoditization of the data. How would you, what would be the business objective of this initiative, or how, or another way to say it is, how would you measure success of this project? Let's say once 6 months or 12 months after deployment of the public API.
Well, essentially, to measure the success of this project, First, we'd like that project to actually go live and people are using it, it's useful. As well, we'd like surveys out from IT to make sure that everyone is working with IT well, to ensure that they believe in what IT has been doing. I'm sorry, just to clarify the question, is it from the market's perspective?
Yeah, it's more the business metrics. Like as a business owner, how do I measure the success of this project? Not necessarily the execution of the project, but the actual results from a business perspective.
So in terms of the data, there's all kinds of tools, including Google Analytics and some other private tools that cost money, that you can see how much referrals you're getting, how many referrals you're getting. And you can then translate that, the more referrals you get, obviously the more you can charge for people to store a listing with you. So that's basically how you'd be doing it with internet-based analytics. And if you have lots of referrals back to you, then that's very tempting for people to post something with us as Yellow Pages. So that's how you would go about doing that.
Right.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks,
Good work.
Thanks so much for watching us.
Thank you. Good work. Thank you. Good work.
Sarah, proud parents.